You're sitting by the window on a flight. The engines roar, the plane lifts off, and right outside your window, barely an arm's length away, are the wings. Massive, flexible, bending slightly with every gust of turbulence. And somewhere inside those wings, right now, there are tens of thousands of liters of jet fuel sloshing around at 35,000 feet, which raises a question most passengers never think to ask. Why there? Why the wings? Of all the places on a plane, the belly, the fuselage, a dedicated tank, why would engineers choose to put the fuel in the one part of the aircraft that flexes, bends, and takes the most stress during flight? The answer isn't obvious, and once you hear it, you'll never look at a wing the same way again. The most common assumption is that it's simply a space issue. The wings are big, there's room in there, so engineers put the fuel where it fits. That sounds reasonable, but it's only a small part of the story. Because if space was the only factor, engineers would have designed a dedicated fuel tank in the belly of the aircraft, the way ships store cargo below the waterline, or the way early aircraft actually did store fuel, in tanks mounted separately from the structure. The real reason the wings became the fuel tank has nothing to do with convenience. It has everything to do with physics, and one of the most elegant engineering solutions in the history of aviation. Wings want to tear themselves apart. To understand why fuel goes in the wings, you first have to understand the problem that wings face during flight. When a plane is on the ground, gravity pulls everything downward, including the wings. But the moment it takes off, something dramatic changes. The air flowing over the wings generates lift, and that lift pushes the wings upward with enormous force. A fully loaded Boeing 747 generates enough lift to support over 400 tons. That force is concentrated at the wing roots, the point where the wings connect to the fuselage, and it creates a bending stress so powerful that over time it can fatigue the metal structure of the wing itself. Engineers call this upward bending moment, and it's one of the most destructive forces an aircraft has to manage on every single flight. Fuel as a counterweight. Here's where it gets elegant. Fuel is heavy. A full tank of jet fuel in the wings of a large aircraft can weigh tens of thousands of kilograms, and that weight, distributed along the length of the wing, pushes downward, directly opposing the lift force trying to bend the wings. In other words, the fuel acts as a counterweight. It reduces the bending stress on the wing structure by fighting the lift from the inside out. The heavier the fuel load, the more it counteracts the upward force trying to bend the wings. This isn't a side effect of storing fuel in the wings. It was designed this way deliberately. Engineers figured out that putting the fuel exactly where the stress is highest was the smartest way to manage it, using the weight of the fuel itself as a structural tool. The wings get lighter as the flight goes on. Here's what surprises most people. As the plane burns fuel during the flight, the wings get progressively lighter. That counterweight effect slowly disappears, which means the bending stress on the wings actually increases as the flight continues, not because anything goes wrong, but because the natural balance between fuel weight and lift is shifting. Engineers account for this precisely. The fuel isn't just stored in one tank inside the wing, it's distributed across multiple tanks, and the order in which fuel is burned is carefully managed by the aircraft's fuel management system. The system burns fuel from specific tanks in a specific sequence to maintain balance, keep the center of gravity stable, and manage the stress on the wings throughout the flight. It's not just a fuel system, it's a structural management system running continuously in the background of every flight. There's also a center tank. Most large commercial aircraft have a third tank located in the fuselage between the wings. And here's the interesting detail. Fuel is burned from the center tank first, before the wing tanks. Why? Because burning the center fuel first keeps the wing tanks full longer, maximizing the counterweight effect during the most stressful phase of flight, which is takeoff and initial climb. By the time the plane reaches cruising altitude and the worst structural stress has passed, the wing tanks start to empty. The system is timed precisely to match the structural needs of the aircraft at each phase of the journey. There's a principle in engineering called elegant design, the idea that the best solutions solve multiple problems with a single element. No redundancy, no wasted space, every component doing more than one job. Storing fuel in the wings is one of the most elegant examples of this principle in modern engineering. The wings need to be large, the fuel needs to go somewhere, the structure needs to manage bending stress, and the aircraft needs to maintain balance throughout the flight. One decision, fuel in the wings, solves it all simultaneously. The storage problem, the structural problem, and the balance problem all addressed by the same design choice. And this is the kind of thinking that makes modern aviation possible. Not brute force engineering, not adding more material to make things stronger, but understanding the forces at play and using them against each other, letting the weight of the fuel fight the stress of the lift automatically on every flight. So the next time you're sitting by the window and you look out at that wing, bending slightly, holding the sky, you'll know what's actually happening inside it. Not just fuel, a counterweight, a structural tool, a carefully managed system that's constantly balancing lift against gravity, burning in the right sequence, keeping the aircraft stable from takeoff to landing. The wings aren't just holding the plane up, they're holding themselves together, and the fuel inside them is a big part of how they do it. That's not just engineering, that's elegance. If this changed how you see something you've flown past 100 times, give this video a like and subscribe, because every week we take something familiar and show you the extraordinary thinking behind it.